All right, let's continue with the Schaefer Cox trial transcripts. This is day 12, Thursday, May the 24th, the year 2012. The name of the file is Transcript Trial Testimony Rigopolis, day 12. All right, hopefully my machine don't lock up. My machine's been locking up on me. It's been terrible. All right, Anchorage, Alaska. Miss Lamoureux, the government calls Christopher Rigopolis. If you'll raise your right hand, be sworn. I do. Be seated, please. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name? It's Christopher Dean Rigopolis, Rigopoulos. And where do you work? I work for the FBI. We got another FBI Polar Pen special agent. Everybody works for the freaking FBI nowadays. You ever notice how that works? Where? In the explosives unit in Quantico, Virginia, in our laboratory division. And what's your current position? I'm a supervisory special agent, bomb technician, explosive device examiner. All these freaking FBI folks, man, all these government employees, they're always so proud of their title. I'm a dog canine handler, explosives detection unit handler. It's like they're so proud of their titles, and the government gives them, and all their fiat currency that's given to them by the Federal Reserve. It makes me sick, man. It's like, ugh. I woke up this morning and I already want to puke. Got to read the freaking words of a freaking FBI special agent. Let me read that again, probably how he said it. I'm a supervisory special agent, bomb technician, explosive device examiner. Oh my goodness, we got a smarty pants on the line. And how long have you been an explosive device examiner, Mr. Smarty Pants? 6 years. And prior to that, what were you doing? Prior to that, I was a special agent assigned to the Philadelphia division, and I worked up there as a special agent bomb technician. They're all special, they're all special. All the FBI folks are special. And what does a special agent bomb technician do? We do investigations on bombing cases that are within our jurisdiction. And in Philadelphia, we have 44 counties that we had to respond to any kind of bombing case that the FBI had an interest in, or just to provide assistance. We respond out of those counties and assist local bomb technicians. If they had a suspicious device or a suspicious package, we would assist them to render them safe and to help collect the pieces of evidence. And prior to being a special agent bomb technician with the FBI, what did you do? I was a gunnery sergeant in the U.S. Marines. I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years, the Marine Corps Reserve out of Knoxville, Tennessee. And my role there was a demolition platoon sergeant. That's how I got my explosives background, working in the Marines. So I worked there for, like I said, 13 years, including the Gulf War. We worked our way into Kuwait and through the minefields. The other job I had was a career firefighter in Knox County, Tennessee. And I worked on Advanced Life Support Engine Company. We did, fire response, medical response, hazardous materials. And I did that for 10 years before I got my appointment to the FBI. This is a super duper smarty pants, man. They've got a real live one on our hands here, folks. It sounds like that guy that went to the trial with the Texas Deacon, and the fire marshal got up on stand. You should have seen the fire marshal, man. He had his firearm hanging off his side and had his big sunglasses hanging on his shirt, and he started to give his credentials. I thought we was all going to have to go take a smoke break while he listed all his credentials, Oh my goodness. And as an explosive device examiner with the FBI, what do you do? As an explosive device examiner, I examine bomb components that will get sent into the FBI. As I mentioned, as a field bomb tech, you would render the device safe and collect them as evidence. They get sent into our laboratory to an agent like myself, where we get the pieces, and then we're going to coordinate those pieces to move through the lab in a condition so all the different disciplines like fingerprints, DNA, tool marks, so those examiners can examine the components. Now, because they're bombs, I'm the first one who gets them in the lab. We have to make sure that they're in a safe condition, for our other examiners to do their test. So as the evidence comes in, we do complete inventories, set the exam plan on what steps they're going to do through, and they're going to move through the lab. And at the end of those exploitations with examiners who look at all the pieces, they come back to me, and then I'm going to examine those myself and determine how they work. How would they function? And what could they do? And then I'll write a forensic report reflecting for each case. Can you summarize your training and experience with explosives? Okay. As I mentioned, I was a demolition platoon sergeant in the Marine Corps, and landmines and general demolitions, that was our bread and butter. So I did that for 13 years, as I mentioned. When I got in the FBI, I was appointed to go to the Hazardous Devices School at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. That's where all the bomb techs in the United States, we all go to the same school. We get our basic training there on how to render safe explosive devices and also explosive handling. And from there, I went back to the field. I was lucky enough to go to the British Bomb School in Coddington, England, as well as some other advanced training courses with that. Several chemistry courses reflecting the chemistry of explosives and powders. Also, I was allowed to go and do hands-on training, which advanced render safe schools, post-blast investigator schools, now I'm a coordinator for the whole FBI on post-blast investigation for all of our agents that do these classes that go through my program. Other explosive training that we have is in our unit. We have a very rigorous qualification program that we have to go through. It takes 2 to 5 years to go through all the steps and include some advanced college classes that we have an opportunity to take on chemistry and explosives effects. Also, we have oral boards that we have to successfully complete, and the oral boards are the administrative matters within our unit that we have to be sure that we understand and adhere to. And we also have an explosive board, which we have to demonstrate our knowledge of explosives and IEDs among our peers. Our peers are the ones that are grading us. It's very, very challenging. Then we also go through 2 indiscernible where we give casework to produce from the start to the end, and our final product is graded, and then we have to defend it. So it's a very rigorous program, within our unit, and right now there's 10 of us that are qualified in the FBI to serve in this very special, prestigious position. Woo! He's a smarty pants. He's a smarty pants of smarty pants. They just bringing up all the smarty pants on this trial. Can you approximate how many explosive examinations you've conducted? Over the past several years in my career with the FBI, I have managed and handled thousands of pieces of evidence, several hundred crime scenes, and just multiple. They all tie together. What? I hope I answered your question. Affirmative. What professional organizations do you belong to? Ooh, a professional organization. The Federal Reserve creates professional organizations all over the world. And if you don't believe with what they want you to believe, they don't let you be a member of their club. They've got a big club, and you ain't part of it. Unless you sell your soul. I'm a member of the International Association of Bomb Technicians and Investigators. I'm also a member of the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. And I believe that's it, yeah. And you have received awards and honors related to your work? I certainly have, because I'm a smarty pants, and smarty pants collect awards. I've been fortunate to be awarded from the FBI the Medal of Valor that was given to me for some actions I was involved in 2005 in Iraq. After 2 suicide bombers attacked my team, several people were critically injured, and I carried them out as snipers were shooting at us. Sounds like Hillary Clinton. The FBI felt compelled to give me that medal. I was very humbled. And you're very humbled. Whoa! Can you imagine after everything he's just said, quoting all of his awards, quoting all of his prestigious accomplishments, all of his history of great accomplishments, he has the gall and the audacity to say, I was very humbled. And the second one is the FBI Shield of Bravery. After a month difference from that same time in Iraq, we were on a scene with 5 U.S. soldiers who were killed and were investigating. I seen my team leader stepped on a secondary IED, and it blew his leg off and arm off, and there was other ones that were buried in that proximity. Maybe this gentleman, if you're listening, what's your name again? I don't remember. Rigopoulos. Maybe Mr. Rolopogos. You should read a book. I highly recommend you read this book. It's by Smedley Butler. Smedley Butler wrote a book called War is a Racket, And I would suggest that you think very seriously about the role that you've played in the context of human affairs and all of your life's effort. I would suggest that you read that book and consider what role you've played as far as the context of human behavior, right? War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. Please check it out. I seen my team leader stepped on a secondary ID and it blew his leg and his arm off. And there was other ones that were buried in that proximity. I went in and I patched him up and carried him out. So the Bureau felt compelled to give me that medal as well. Well, you're just a medal collecting individual, ain't you? The third one is a very important because it was given to me. I was nominated by my peers. It's the Lenny Hatton Danger Award, and it was for a culmination of those events in Iraq and is memorializing Lenny Hatton, who was a bomb technician who died in 9/11. So I'm very humbled to have been a recipient of those awards. Wow. 9/11. Are you familiar, Mr. Regapolos, with Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth? Are you aware that there are elements of our own government that participated in 9/11? No, you probably wouldn't be open to that truth, although I would love to get into a conversation with you about it. Do you know that I'm an engineer, and I signed that petition, by the way? And so you may think that you understood what's going on in 9/11, but I suggest, based on the testimony that you've just given, that you don't have a freaking clue on what really happened on 9/11, and you've been bamboozled, and you need to understand, wake up and smell the roses, to understand who really betrayed this country and who betrayed you, and you've put your whole life's effort into a huge deception, and it's really sad thing to hear and to see and to read. Turning to this investigation, did you yourself conduct examinations of items that were seized in this investigation? Yes, ma'am, I did. Let's start with some of the items that were seized from the trailer. Exhibits 397, 398, 400, 401, 402, 403, 411, and 417. And so if you could go ahead and look at those items, you had an opportunity to review them before coming to court today? Yes, ma'am. Do you have everything all, I believe so, ma'am, set up there? Affirmative. Okay, great. And let's go ahead and pull up a photo of the jury. Photo for the jury. It's already admitted. Can we have the lights, Madam Clerk? That's the bucket that you have up there with that's, yes it is. Exhibit 411, yes it is. Did you have an opportunity to review all the items that are before you back at the lab? Yes, but I reviewed those items here in Anchorage when I came out to examine them. Okay, so some of the items you reviewed when you were here in Alaska and some you reviewed in Virginia. That's accurate. Miss Lamro, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and show 343, please, and 369 and 370. Looking at those photos, do you examine some of those fuses that are depicted? Right now, we're looking at Exhibit 370. Yes, ma'am. And were you able to determine the delay on those fuses? The delay research, we determined that it was approximately 0.7 to 2 seconds once it's initiated. And how would you refer to those fuses? We would refer to those fuses as belonging to a smoke grenade, or perhaps an incendiary grenade, which is used to generate dramatic heat. And the fuses that were attached to those grenade bodies, what kind of grenade bodies are those? We call those practice grenades. And the model you see before you, that's called a lemon. And are they smoke grenades? No, they're not. After examining all the items that are around you, were you able to reach conclusions regarding whether they were explosives? Well, the determination of this photograph here, the fuses were functional, and the grenade bodies for the practice grenades were exactly that. And in conjunction with all the other items that you have in front of you, were you able to make a determination as to what they were? Yes, absolutely. And what were they? The 4 fuses were fuses that were designed for the military to initiate a smoke grenade or an incendiary grenade, as I initially mentioned. And the other hand grenade bodies were practice grenade bodies. And that's the purpose that they're intended for. And there's also a container of JB Weld material, which is a commercial product. It's a binary product which is mixed to make like a kind of putty, a sealant. And that was also included. And also appear on 2 containers of smokeless powder that were recovered in the evidence as well. So based on your knowledge of these items, you concluded that they were destructive devices. That's correct. What else factored into that decision? The fact that in one of the photographs you showed that they were all located together, so it makes them readily assemblable, and where you could put these items together easily, and all the pieces were very easily to access, and some of them were interchangeable. And it was these components. Which ones? Which ones were interchangeable? The fuses you see in the photograph there. Here, the 4 fuses, those would fit on the other grenade bodies that were shown. The ones that are in the bucket sitting next to you, that's correct. Did you conduct any tests to determine whether they were functioning? We did. We conducted tests on the fuses. Let me first ask you with regard to these, were these live fuses? Yes, they were. Did you learn that they might have a, Miss Lamoureux, actually, if we could have the lights, Madam Clerk, did you learn that they might have some kind of manufacturer's defect? After our investigation, our lab ensured we were reaching through the company, the manufacturers, these to see if they could help us identify the lot number, because on the top of the spoon, that's the metal piece next to the ring. It has a lot number that's written onto there. So you know, we identified all the lot numbers on these gray fuses, and we gave those to the manufacturer and asked them to help us see where they came from and what lot number they belonged to. And with that, they identified through the pictures that their opinion were based on those bends you can see in the spoon on that metal piece. They believe that, question. Here, let me go ahead and try to see if I can mark where you're talking about. If you could have the lights, if I could have the lights, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. Where is the bend that you're referring to? If you look at the fuse in the lower right, the straight piece all of a sudden makes an abrupt curve up. The bend right there, according to the manufacturer, would not allow it to pass a quality assurance check. So those right there, they would consider those not appropriate to send out with a main lot. Is it the bend that we sort of see within there? Yes, that's correct. Those opinions were made based on photographs that were submitted to them. And do you know if those defects impact the functionality of the fuses? No, they did not. And do you know how the levers, how those got bent? I'm not sure, that's unknown. Did you learn anything about the potential manufacture date of these fuses? We researched the lot numbers that we sent. The manufacturer sent back the approximate time frames when those were made. I apologize, I can't remember off my memory exactly what that was. Would it help if I refer to that information to the, yes ma'am, manufacturer? I'm going to show you what's Bates numbered FED 3814. And if we could have the lights, please. Okay. What did you learn about the possible manufacturer's date of those fuses? The manufacturer date, based on the lot numbers that we submitted to the manufacturer, there's a number that was there on 9A. It indicates that they were manufactured in January 2009, and that's basically January 2009, yes ma'am. Now back in the lab, did you actually take apart any of the items to verify that they were in fact what they appeared to be? Yes, we did. As I mentioned to you guys, the fact that we set the tone of how the examinations go, one of the goals we wanted to do was to identify the explosive powders that were inside these fuses. So to do that, we had to take one apart, and they were very tricky to take apart because in the condition right there, they're loaded, which means the spring is cocked back and it's ready to flip forward, and there's the ring that's on the fuse. There's a pin that goes through the hole that's holding the spring back. So our challenge was to be able to take apart the spoon off without releasing the spring. So to accomplish that, we had to put one of those fuses in a vise to secure it tightly so we could cut apart the top of the fuse off to access the primer cup that was under it without letting the spoon fly off. And then the striker hit the primer cup. So when you were doing that the first time, I think it bent a little too hard, the metal spoon. So we accessed another one to try to access the cup, and we did. And we were successful in removing the primer cup as well as the delay tube. Then inside, we submitted those materials to our chemist who did their analysis of the chemistry, and that's inside the fuse. And then you did conduct the other test to determine whether these would actually function as designed. Yes, we did. We call it a burn test, and it was designed to show that the functionality of these fuses, of one of these fuses, if you pull the pin, would it allow a spit of fire to come out of the bottom part? There's a round part on the bottom of that fuse. The part is what we're trying to prove that this thing would emit flame. Let me stop you there, and actually you conducted a number of tests, is that right? Or how many tests did you conduct, would you say? Are you describing the fuse test? The fuse test is one test. That one. Okay, and then, affirmative. Did you conduct tests on the actual grenade bodies that were seized in the investigation? Yes, we did. Those were after, affirmative. We determined that this thing would function and produce a flame, and so we can refer to them as that sort of 3 tests. That's correct. Okay, 3 tests. And in general, what would you say the purpose of those tests were? Well, once we determined that these fuses were capable of producing a flame, the other grenade test, we put the powder inside the grenade bodies, similar to those that you see in the photograph, and then we ignited that powder within the grenade, so it would show that the burning, that the powder would cause gas to build up inside it, cause the grenade body to rupture, and then the pieces would fly about in all directions. Those could cause personal injury, damage to property, or even death. And we just wanted to demonstrate the potential lethality of these potential devices. So you used the fuses and grenade bodies that were actually seized in the investigation, and then what did you use the powder and the JB Weld in your tests? Okay, the powders that we used, we purchased the same brand of powders to show that these would function, and we did. So you would see that once our chemists proved that the submitted samples were in fact explosives, the other powders would allow these things to explode, which they did, and to allow the fuses to allow fire to come to them to a burn, which they were successful in doing. So you used JB Weld, but not the JB Weld that was seized in this case. That's correct. We used the same brand, same model. In this case, defense wanted to test independently the powders that were seized on the JB Weld. And were those tests videotaped? Yes, they were. Let me go ahead and show you. We've identified at Exhibit 678. Did you have an opportunity to review the CD? Yes. Before court? Yes, ma'am. And does the videotape reflect those 3 tests that you referred to? Yes, they do. The government offers Exhibit 678. No objection. Is that the high-speed test? Yes, this is the test we just talking about, the video. No objection. May I inquire with government counsel? Your Honor, it is my understanding that these 3 different clips on the specific exhibit, and I do have an objection to one of them, and I don't know if the court wants me to go further right now because I have to talk about what's on it. Do you want to voir dire the witness, or I don't know, what's the issue? Well, the issue is that there's a video on the particular exhibit of a grenade going off, and there are cutouts of some forms of people. I'm not quite sure what they're made out of, whether they're plastic or cardboard. I think it's highly prejudicial. It doesn't show the grenade exploding. It shows exploding with these people behind it. How long is the video? There are 3 videos, Your Honor. They're both short in length, and 1 video for each, corresponding to each of the tests were performed. The court, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you another break because we're out of sync here this afternoon. So take a hike and we'll deal with this. Okay, suppose you show me your exhibit. Okay, this is the first test. Your Honor, can Mr. Barney go to the restroom? Yeah, we'll take 5 and we'll do that. This right. Okay, but keep it quick. All rise. This matter stands in recess. All rise. Please be seated. Okay. If we could have the lights, please. 678 first test. I'm sorry, counsel. We're going to play right now. Your Honor, this is the fuse being ignited with black powder. There's no objection to this part, I take it. Actually, now that I've seen it, I would object to the slow motion part of it. I can't see how that's probative of anything, and it's certainly prejudicial. It makes it look like there's projectiles or shrapnel coming out of it when there isn't any. Miss Lamoureux, we can explain what's happening here, and those are valid questions for the cross-examination. Mr. Dooley. And I object to the slow motion video. It looks to me like it's a drama for the jury instead of accurate reflection of what happens in an explosion. The court, well, I need to hear more foundation on that. Miss Lamoureux. Mr. Regopoulos, can you go ahead and explain what's going on in that test there? Yes, ma'am. I guess the question, indiscernible, slow motion video. Well, this is a fuse that was seized from the trailer, right? Yes, ma'am. And the point of the test was what? The point of the test was to demonstrate that these fuses, when the pin was pulled, the following procedure would occur, where the striker hits the primer, causing it to start a burn, and then a flame will spit out of the bottom of the fuse and ignite the smokeless powder material. And you use the Alliant unique double-base smokeless powder in this test? That's accurate, yes. Why the slow motion? In case sometimes these things happen really fast and you really can't see what's going on. This slows it down so you can see the fire and you can see the powders igniting, because that's what's happening. There's no shrapnel involved. There's actually smokeless powder, little disc, that the pressure, that's how much force is coming out of this powerful fuse. It's not just fire, it's pushing, it's pressure, and that's what's going to be generated inside the grenade body. So that you're seeing here is just fire, sir. It's the burning very vigorously. Mr. Dooley, if I may, what does the slow motion show that high-speed film doesn't show? The witness, you can actually see the fire here, and you can see the components we're describing burning. In the high-speed, you just see a flame, and then you can't see the detail. That is so explicit in the third video. Well, Mr. Traverso, but isn't that a lot of powder there that wouldn't be in the device anyway? That's not necessarily true. We weighed how much powder goes into the device, and that was less than what we would have put into a grenade. Mr. Traverso, but you, Miss Lamoureux, is this cross The court, go ahead with the next one. Yeah, Lamoureux. Before we go to it, what can you explain what the test is? The next test? Yeah. The next test, we're taking the smokeless powders. They inserted inside the grenade body. JB Weld has been placed at the bottom of the open hole, and electric match is inserted inside. Since we demonstrated the fact that the fuse has a flame associated with it when it's activated, we used an electric match in this case for the purpose of safety, because we don't want to pull from a rope from a few feet away, the spoon. We wanted to have it go off when we wanted it to. And when we do this in our test for safety, so what you're going to see in this video is a grenade body on top of a metal ammo can. And the grenade body is one that actually came from inside that bucket. Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Okay, one that was seized, and it has a smokeless powder inside of it, on top of an ammo can, a metal ammunition container. And we stacked up 5, I call them indiscernible buckets, just for height, approximately the height of about 3 feet. That's where somebody could be holding, if it as far as the reference go up. Then we taped it down so it wouldn't fall over. Once again for safety, because we're trying to set this examine up safely, of course. It's a dangerous procedure. So what I believe we're going to see, and our expectation is to show the grenade body when the powders ignite and the gases that are formed and cause an explosion, rupturing the grenade body and allowing the fragment from the grenade body to move omnidirectional at tremendous speeds. And we put together material to show what happened if it hits somebody, because in my report I said that these devices, if assembled correctly, could cause property damage, personal injury, and even death. This examination shows the fact that these fragmentation pieces are moving at those speeds, causing the kind of damage that could cause personal injury and death. And those targets are plastic. They're very thick plastic that we use actually for target shooting at certain ranges. We set them up around the grenade. And the point is, affirmative, just to be able to see where the shrapnel flies. That's the whole point, is to show that it does function. The grenade does contain the powders. It does cause an explosion, and the fragmentation could strike at tremendous velocity with these targets. And you used an Alliant powder similar to what was seized in this case, the same kind of Alliant powder, the same kind, yes ma'am, and the same kind of JB Weld that was seized in this case, yes ma'am, and an explosion did occur, yes it did, in the test. Okay, let's see it. Lamoureux, play the audio. And so, did we see there in slow motion what was going on there? Well, the slow motion allowed you to see, as the explosion occurred, the fragmentation as we moved it away from the epicenter, the center of the blast, to the target material. And you can see it happened in sequence: the explosion, the fire, fragmentation moving out, the pressure wave, and then it struck the target. So you can see the targets moving, and you can see the fragmentation skipping across the ground at the high speed in the video example. I guess the test really, Your Honor, doesn't really show under its demonstrative of anything in this case so far. Number one, there's been absolutely, well, wait a minute. Mr. Traverso, all right. The court lets Mr. Traverso, all right. Let's see the other one. Miss Lamoureux, do you want to go to Miss Lamoureux, the third one? Can you describe what the test was for the third one, the purpose of the test, and what it was? Yes, ma'am, the first one. We could only recover a couple of pieces of the fragmentation. So the next test we conducted, is that because it went in multiple directions? It went in all directions. Okay, that's correct. Yes, ma'am, the next test we did the same setup. We put the grenade, we hung it on a barrel, steel barrel, that was initially used to support the box. So we hung it in the barrel and with a monofilament tape, so it would be right there in the center. And we initiated it the same way. And so you used again one of the grenades that was taken out of the bucket that was found, yes ma'am, in the trailer. And you used the Time Ogden powder, similar. That's correct. To the same kind of that was seized in the case, yes. You sealed it up with JB Weld, yes. Not the same, but similar, yes, that's correct. Okay, and then we initiated it. And what you'll see in this demonstration is the force that the grenade produced, the pressure that it produced, and the steel barrel. It's very robust. The grenade ate large pieces, went through the barrel, exited, made exit holes, went through several of the pieces, made large dents, just to show the amount of force and the power that these grenades have. And it blew the lid about 15 to 20 feet up in the air. That's a very good illustration of the potential power associated with this material. Okay. Lamoureux, let's play the third clip, please. Play the video. Okay, quickly now, objections. My objection is to the slow motion, because Hollywood does it in slow motion for the drama of it, and it's not reflecting what a person would actually see. I'll join with Mr. Dooley. The court, pardon, I join Mr. Dooley, but I also object to the figurines. To the what? The figurines or whatever you want to call them, the silhouettes and the plastic people, the dummies. Yeah, okay, we might need to be more specific. The court, well, tell me if I'm wrong. The issue here is whether that these destructive devices under the statute, right? This goes far beyond that question, and it seems to me that there is a good deal more harm than probative that in determining that and showing how powerful something is. That's not the question, and there's no evidence to support these tests that 3 people were going to be standing around or that the grenade is going to be shot off in a can. This test goes beyond the evidence in this case. The first test shows that the fuses work, and the second clip is admissible. And with the explanation, the slow motion part of it, I think, is not prejudicial and is appropriate. The other 2 clips go beyond the evidence in the case, are not admissible. For the record, the government wanted to show that they do function as designed. The defendants clearly had an intent to use the grenades. The defendants themselves talked about, we heard of course about the, yeah, but you set up shrapnel flying. The test you set up, tests plural, they are supported by that are not supported by the evidence in this case. There were statements, the court, now if you want to, that the grenades, if you want, were going to be used to kill law enforcement. We don't know how they were going to kill law enforcement with the grenades. That's the point. There's no evidence to support this particular test. If you put a grenade somewhere and show one of these grenades and show that it goes off, you've proved something. Miss Lamoureux, if I may, the court, but this test are not, in my view, are not admissible except for the first clip. This is what's called controlled opposition. They're acting like they're fighting, but they're really not fighting. They're both on the same team. Miss Lamoureux, we have some photos that we've marked as well, and it might be, you might get it at a different way. Miss Lamoureux, efficient, if we should go through them at this point since the jury's out of the, I don't know what they are, so I don't know if we need to go through them at this point. Counsel, I plan to offer what's been identified as photographs, Exhibit 655 through 676. And we can, we can put them up on the screen. They're the same ones that I emailed you about last night. Well, each of those requires identification, and we're wasting a lot of time here. Okay, I think I've ruled on 678. We can go the jury back and go to work. Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would like to hear our objections to the photographs, or this court not letting the photographs in, or what. I haven't heard the identification of them, so I think the objections are premature. But I can see that some of them have the same issues that, test in court that are very sensitive things, and you can't just do any test and make it admissible. So we can go forward here, and Lamoureux, yes, the court. Get some, there's nothing relevant in these pictures that can't be testified to by the witnesses. At least none of the relevant parts. So let's get the jury in and go back to work. Lamoureux, can I inquire of the witness of the drum in terms of just the test being done? It depends on what your questions are. Okay. All right, Miss Lamoureux. Question. Mr. Mothershead, you indicated that of the 4 live fuses that were seized in the investigation, one of them you removed the materials from the inside examination of the forensic chemist, right? That's correct. And then another one you conducted a test to determine whether it actually performed as it designed? Yes, that's correct. Did you videotape that test? We did. And again, the purpose of the test regarding the fuse? Yeah, the purpose was to demonstrate that the pin was pulled from the fuse, that the spoon, would come off and the striker would hit the primer and it would cause a flame to come out of the bottom of the fuses. That's the main purpose of that test. And can you explain how you set up the test? Yes, we put a stake in the ground when we zip tied the fuse to make the stake so it would stay in place. Now, if you remember from the photograph, there was a round pin, a circle kind of pin, a pull pin, and it was attached to what we call a cotter pin that went through the grenade fuses. Now, to pull that pin, it takes between 6 and 22 pounds of pressure to pull it. It was designed for military person to pull it, then throw the grenade. For this test, with a piece of string, pulling it, that would be a challenge. So what we did was we took that pin out and put a bobby pin in so it would tie to a string to it and then easily pull it out for this examination. All right. So that was our intent, was to have that fuse attached to the stake, so when we pulled the string, the pin would come off, and the video camera was capturing the spoon coming off and then the flame coming out. That's the whole purpose of the test. And then do you use powder? What do you use for in order to see if it would work? We used Alliance smokeless powder, which is similar to that was recovered from the research, used to demonstrate that the flame came out of it. It would ignite a smokeless powder. And how much of that powder did you use? Approximately an ounce and a half. Did you, and is it more or less than would go in a grenade body? Well, it depends. The Alliant powder, if I was remember from my notes, one of the powders, 1.7 ounces would fill it, and one of them, 3 ounces would fill it. From those two containers, the two different types of powders, because of the different size grains, which allow more or less to go inside of the grenade body. Now, when you were doing this test, did you have any unsuccessful attempts? Yes, we did. Can you tell the jury about those? As I mentioned earlier, one of our first examinations was to remove the primer. I mentioned that we put one of those fuses in a vise and tightened it down so we could get the spoon piece off. Well, in doing that, the first one we tried, we bent part of the top metal part, unknowingly. And so later we tried to do our first fuse test. We used one of those fuses initially, and so when we pulled it, the whole fuse came off the stake. So it just fell off the stake. It just fell off and it was struck several times. Okay. Then we really cinched it down so it wouldn't move. Then we pulled that pin off the spoon, and the spring flung the spoon up, and then it stopped. And it's because we damaged it. We tightened the vise down. That was our fault as far as that part goes. Then we put another fuse in its place. Okay, so that one, yeah, got struck in hang fire. Affirmative. It's still in the lab. Yeah, it is. You didn't get to test it, no. And so you took another one of the 4, yeah, fuses, and then did the burn test. Yeah, we did. Okay, and so that's videos we're about to see. Yes, ma'am. Okay, 678 has been admitted to court. 678, part 1, yeah. Okay, if we could have the lights. Okay, play the video. Miss Lamro. Okay, so that was the 3 videos there, but it's all one test. Is that right? Oh, yes, that's correct. And so 2 of them looks like were faster speed, and the one that's slow speed, that's right. Okay, and what were we seeing there in terms of, yeah, you're seeing it as the pin's pulled, the spring is flinging the spoon off and the grenade fuse, and it's allowing the striker, it's a little sharp little point on the assembly to fling over and smack the base of the primer. Now when it hits the primer, that impact causes heat, and it's causing the primer to start the burn, and the material's burn inside it, and that's burn is now through the whole delay tube, which you're seeing the flame come out of the bottom. That's why there's small delay, and then spit of flame comes out at the bottom, and it's igniting that powder. Now you're seeing as far as things moving, there's pressure that's associated with this also. It's kind of pushing, it's causing like a breath of air pushing. That's why it's blowing some of the powders up in the air. What you're seeing flying in the air, that's just small little discs from the smokeless powder, and it's igniting, and that's why you see the flame. So, and yes, and your exhibit 403, they're up there with you. Yes, ma'am. And is that the fuse that was part of the test? Yes, it is. And so what's left there? All of the components are there. The spoon, the housing, the striker, the spring, the pin, everything is accounted for. And it's functioned as designed. Yes, it is. Yes, it did. Now, did you perform other tests? Yes, we did. And if we could, actually, one thing I want to go ahead and show you related to that test are 4 photos, which are identified as Government Exhibit 655 through 658. You can look at them on your screen there. If we could just scroll through them. You had the opportunity to review those before today. Is that right? Yes. All those photos are related to the test. Yes, that's correct. The government offers exhibits, blah, blah, blah. Were those photos taken during your test? Yeah. Traverso, was the crowbar used? Yeah, it was. I didn't see the crowbar used. Well, as I mentioned, when we first set this thing up, we attached the fuse to stake, and we pulled it several times, and the whole thing came off. It wouldn't stay in the ground. The ground wasn't deep, so we replaced it with something more substantial, and that's what you're seeing in this photograph, something more substantial, something that would not come out of the ground when we pulled the string. Okay, these were still photographs of the clip we saw? Yes, sir. Are they still a little different from the video, aren't they? They're in a different timeline. The first ones, when we set it up, we tried to make it happen. The first couple of pulls, the stake came out of the ground, so this is the final one that you're seeing in this photographs. The first 3 are not the tests that were successful. The first 3 pictures, I take it, that's correct. Well, those 3 didn't add anything. Those are rejected, and 658, the same thing. I think 658 may be admitted. If we can pull up 658. So this photo was taken while you were doing the burn test on the fuse. Yes, ma'am. And what other tests did you perform? We did 2 other tests that we took grenade bodies that were recovered from the search, and we put smokeless powder inside the grenade bodies and electric match, and we sealed them with JB Weld material similar to that was recovered, and we had them on the range, and we exploded them and documented those exams as well. And you did 2 tests? We did. And you used those kinds of powders that were seized in the investigation. That's correct. And what was part of the purpose of the test? Yes, it was. Can you explain what you used as an electric match instead of, you didn't use the live fuses that were seized, right? Yes, that's correct. Why did you use the electric match? We use that for our safety. The purpose of the first test was to demonstrate that the fuse will emit a flame. When we satisfy that it will do that, it's unnecessary for us to do that again because the fuse did not design. It used to be used in this manner to make an IED go off. So what we wanted to do was put another flame source inside the grenade body with the powder so we could safely ignite it, because pulling that, if it hung up, that means we had to go up there to fix it, and that's not safe practice. So that's why we wouldn't do that. Can you explain to the jury how an electric match compares with a fuse? Okay, electric matches, they're commercially made to ignite small powder charges. They're very reliable. They're a small piece of wire that has insulation on both sides, and it comes together with a thin piece in the center. The little piece is dipped into pyrotechnic mixture, so when the electricity is added to both pieces of wire, there's like a battery or electrical source. The current is then added through the wire, and then the little thin piece of heating up, because it's high resistance and there's enough that's generated to cause the pyrotechnic mixture to start the burn. So you have a small flame source now. Now comparing that flame source to the flame that's coming off of these fuses, is there a difference? There's a small little puff of flame versus a large quantity of powders that are in the fuse material, so that causes a bigger flame. Do you have an opinion about which one? I mean, is one more powerful than the other? Yes, I would. I would say that the fuse is much more powerful in emitting a flame than the electric match. So the fuse is more powerful. Is that what you said? Yes. Does that have anything to do with thermal energy? There's more thermal energy coming off the mechanical fuse than there would be in the electric match. So let me go ahead and so first you would test with the Alliant Power, yes. Okay, and did you seal one of the grenade bodies that was seized from the bucket? Yeah, we did, that's correct. And then you used the JB Weld to seal the hole? Yes. And how long did you let the JB Weld cure? Approximately 2 hours. And then you tried to get it to explode? That's correct. And did it explode? Yes, it did. What happened? When we set the first grenade off, we set it on top of a metal ammo can. There are very robust containers, and we had taped it down for safety so it wouldn't fall off. And we had approximately 3 feet high, so we were at a safe distance when we initiated this. One of the electrical current was added. The powders within the grenade body started to burn, and the pressure they're increasingly dramatic and causing the grenade body to rupture. And so it exploded. And it is shrapnel or is it fragmentation? What terms we use when it explodes? We call it fragmentation. Okay. And so did the fragmentation occur? Fragmentation came off this grenade, went in all directions. And were you able to recover any of the fragmentation? Yes, a few pieces. And do you have that fragmentation now? Yes, we do. Where is it? It's in the white bucket next to me. Okay. Where actually is the bucket? Where actually in the bucket is it? It's on the bottom. Okay, let me go ahead and show you what we identified as Government Exhibit 6062. Do you recognize that photo? Yes, I do. And can you briefly, was this photo taken during the test that was just described? Yes, the Government offers 662, inadequate foundation, same as previous objections, Your Honor. It has no bearing on the facts of this case. I would agree with Mr. Traverso, but not me. 662 is rejected. Ms. Lamro, can you describe how where the shrapnel went? Yes, ma'am. That the shrapnel, as the grenade was sitting on top of the metal and taped down, the shrapnel went in all 360 directions. And as the shrapnel was moving out, the pressure was also moving with it. And you can see the metal ammo can. It was grossly deformed and ripped, and you can see a piece of shrapnel went through this metal can, and made an exit hole. So it is tremendous power it required to cause that kind of damage. And then you see the similar test using other kind of powder, and that was found in this, yes we did, case, the Ogden powder, yes. And again, you use this practice grenade bodies, and was seized from the bucket in the trailer, that's correct. And did you seal it with JB Weld? Yes we did. And how long did you let the JB Weld cure? Approximately 2 hours. And was this also an electric match as opposed to, you didn't use an actual fuse? Yeah, that's correct. For the same safety reasons? Yeah, that's correct. Okay, did an explosion occur? It did. Can you describe to the jury what happened? Okay, different from the first test we did with the grenade body, we suspended this grenade body with the monofilament tape in the middle of the steel metal drum, like a large drum, 55-gallon drum. So it's suspended in time in there. We put the lid on top. We just laid it on top, and then we add a current. We had an electric current from the distance and caused that grenade to explode. And when that happened, the grenade shattered and all the fragmentation came off the grenade body and fell in all directions. And it caused 8 holes to appear within the thick metal steel drum. And then you were able to recover some of the fragmentation from the explosion as well. Yes, we were. The pieces that didn't exit through those holes that made large dents within the drum, we were able to recover them from inside the drum. And there are those also in the bucket now with other grenade bodies. Yes, they are. So you did not. So do you know how many grenade bodies were originally in the bucket from the trailer? 17. And how many full bodies are there now? Are now there? 15 with parts For other two, that's correct. Did you examine other items that were seized during the course of this investigation? Yes. Okay, let me go ahead and show you the photos that we have already been admitted as the photos at Exhibits 2, 3. Actually, I forgot one question. The tests that you ran for both Ogden and Alliant Power, those both worked? Yeah, they worked. And approximately how much powder did you put in the grenade bodies for those tests? Okay, one of them approximately 1.7, the other approximately 3.3. Miss Lamoureux, let's move to the photos. Can you examine these photos at the lab? Yeah, I did. And can you briefly describe what the item is? The item, I'm going to call it a component of small improvised explosive device. Your Honor, I'm going to renew my objection at this time. The objection is sustained. The jury will disregard the witness' last answer. Can you explain with the parts, are there in that time? Yes, ma'am. The long wire-looking component are actually wires, and there are 2 wires. And at the far right, you'll see some black electrical tape, and on the left, you can see where the wires come together. It's hard to tell in this photograph, but there is a quantity of steel wool. The wires are acting. It's hard to current to be moved through the wires. And as I mentioned before, like with the electric match, the steel wool, you see, have it your house. It's a very thin wire. Okay, so you add current, that the wire and it's thin. The current will cause the wire to heat up. Okay, so the wire is going to act as an initiator, and it was surrounded by a small container full of low explosive material. And there was an electric continuity between those wires. Yes, there was. Yeah, go ahead and photos that are the exhibits admitted. Is this the item we're looking at previously somehow connected to the item that we're looking at now? It easily could be. Objection, this calls for speculation. No, the objection's overruled. Question, and then it's this time we have in your hand Exhibit 299. We're looking in the photo here. Yes, ma'am. Could you have the lights, please? Madam Clerk, can you briefly describe how the item worked and how those 2 items work together? Yes, ma'am. As you remember the previous photograph, the body that had the steel wool and the 2 wires ran out. Those 2 wires dead-ended. Okay, Your Honor. I'm going to object to this line of questioning, and there's no foundation for this. The court, it appears clear to me that we're not going to finish with this witness today, sadly, and we have another matter to take up. So I think we'll stop there and we'll deal with this objection and the other matters quickly here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing a long weekend, and I told you I would advise you about our future together. Our best, you probably know that the estimates of lawyers and judges, time is just always bad, but I'll give you my best estimate. We're going to have this case in your hand. We're going to have this case in your hands by June the 7th. That's the end of 2 more weeks, or about the end of 2 more weeks. That means to me, there's certainly a possibility that there would be part of the 3rd week. That is the end of the week of June the 10th. Hopefully, we'll be out of here before then. But you can plan on a couple of more weeks and possibly into a 3rd week, and that's the best I can tell you now. On the 30th of May, which I believe is next Wednesday, we're going to have different court hours because we're going to stop at 1, so we won't have a lunch hour. We'll go straight through from the morning, and we'll stop at 1 on next Wednesday. Monday is Memorial Day, which is a court holiday, so you can get Monday off, and so come back on Tuesday morning at 8:30 for court. Now, again, I want to remind you we're facing a 3-day weekend here. Don't discuss the case with each other or anyone else. Don't let anyone talk to you about it. Don't read, view, or listen to any news accounts. That should be any. There have been. But save those things for later. Don't read them. Keep your minds open at all times on all issues. Don't make any independent study of anything or research anything, any matters you've heard about in court. Rely on us to give you all the information you need to fairly determine the case from the evidence you hear in court. As I told you before, those are important instructions to all of us. And so with that, you can be excused. I'll see you on Tuesday morning. Leave your materials. Your Honor, there was a juror note. Oh, yeah. Sure, thanks. Juror number 8, stay here a minute. The rest of you may be excused. Ma'am, if you could remove to the microphone, please, in the first row, thank you. The court, we got your note, and I want to make some inquiry about that. The counsel may have some inquiry about it as well. You indicated that you met Miss Thompson a couple of occasions, and there may be a family connection there. Do you know Miss Thompson personally, or have you just met her? I don't know her personally. I just met her. Okay, speak. Can you pull that off? Okay, thank you. I do not know her personally. I just met her. And you indicated that she may have a relationship with your boyfriend's mother? Yeah, and is there anything that relationship that would cause you to look the testimony more favorable or less favorable than someone with a total stranger to you? No. Is there anything that about what you know about her or anything at all that would cause you to consider her testimony different than that of a total stranger? No. And you understand that part of your job may be to weigh her testimony against that of other people based on everything in this case, and you are free to do that and free to judge her testimony critically as you would any other witness that you've never met before? Absolutely. Okay, I have no objections. No questions, no questions, no questions. Thank you. You did the right thing in bringing this to our attention. We appreciate it. Thank you. Anything on? No, Your Honor. Okay, now there was, I hate to do this to you, Mr. Regopolo, but we got planes to catch and one thing or another around here. And what was the last objection? Your Honor, my objection is that there's no foundation. There's nothing in this evidence that suggests these 2 items, the improvised blasting cap and the clothespin apparatus, go together. They weren't found together. Miss Hayden, there's nothing to support the testimony that they were meant to go together, and that they would if they were connected to each other. The court, I don't think there was testimony that they were meant to go together from the witness. I think it was, he said something about, I don't know what he said. Miss Lamoureux, yes, Your Honor, these two items were found in the garage in adjacent toolboxes, and they can go together. They do go together. He can show how they would link up. That they could go together. Is that an accurate summary? The witness, that's accurate. Miss Hayden, you got nuts and bolts over there that garage could go together. That doesn't mean they go together. I believe there's information available for the people to learn and read about these things, like the Anarchist Cookbook, which was found in Mr. Vernon's home, which is not in evidence. This is not subject of a particular charge. That's correct. This is general testimony. Miss Lamoureux, Mr. Vernon does talk about a number of items in terms of how to use them, how they can be used. The Anarchist Cookbook was sitting on his table next to his living room. The Anarchist Cookbook, couch right on the, it's not in evidence. Yes, it's not in evidence, and there's no indication that Mr. Vernon made either of these items, or understand or knew how they worked, if they did work. I'm not sure that the evidence supports the last point there. This is circumstantial evidence. Well, I mean, they're trying to put this in the form of 404B. I just don't think it flies, Your Honor. I think it's just more and more prejudicial than probative. It's confusing to the jury. It's not charging this indictment. The jury is able to compartmentalize information. I recall from the tapes a lot of talk by Mr. Vernon about various things. I do not recall any indication of an interest in a plan or bomb or IUD or anything like that. Was there anything that I'm missing? Miss Lamoureux, I'm going to do my best to remember all of the points that Mr. Scrocky just whispered in my ear, and there has been a testimony that Mr. Vernon did want to use IEDs, grenades, to kill law enforcement. But then when he was in the hotel room, there was testimony that Mr. Vernon talked about blowing things up. He talked about his blowing the stump of a tree up, and please help me, Scrocky. Sure, sorry, Miss Tag Team, Your Honor. The court, go ahead. Some of us, we remember things, different things. My recollection of the hotel room conversation is that Mr. Vernon discussed having a relative or some sort of relation that had been done welding and done some other sort of explosive devices in a deep water, underwater test setting. He talked about using TNT and other type of explosives to blow up stumps and move roads around. He talked about getting access to these kinds of materials for purposes of conspiracy. I mean, this, if Your Honor will remember the hotel room conversations, that's where it lies. We're not going to be offering this to show anything other than there's a triggering device. If I'm correct with that, yeah, that would connect to that device, period. That's what it's being offered for, to show intent and knowledge. You know, I were going to stop. I would point out to me the first thing Monday or something where that's found, sure. The court in the transcript, I think we're on the edge of a 403 issue, and I need to see what he said about that to see if it is in fact relevant. We'll get that for you, Scrocky. Or not only relevant, but relevant within the confines of 403. All rise. This matter is in recess until Tuesday morning at 8:30. The court is adjourned. Subject to call. Dishonorable court has ended.